Thank you very much for watching my bikepacking film. This is the section of the video where I run through the route in a bit more detail and give you a behind the scenes look into what happened during the ride. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing, and any comments, stick them in the comments box. I love to hear your feedback on the films. So on Friday after work, I got the sleeper train, which I absolutely love. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know that. I've done many trips using the sleeper train up to Aviemore. Aviemore at this time of year tends to be covered in snow. It's very popular with skiers and other winter sports people. So I was super excited to go to do some extreme bike packing in the freezing cold. The plan was for me to cycle along the Speyside Way, which is a beautiful off-road part of the National Cycle Network that takes you up to Boat of Garton before heading back round and doing a loop over the mountains. The Speyside Way was absolutely beautiful. I joined at a golf club at Aviemore and basically it was off-road the entire way to Boat of Garton. It's not very long, it's probably 5 or 6 miles in total from Aviemore to Boat of Garton, but it is a beautiful track and very remote, seems to be nobody there, except for when I went, which was Saturday morning by the time I set off, and there was a park run going on, so I had to weave in and out of the runners, but they were all very used to it and I did have a bell, so it was all good. When I made it into Boat of Garton, I had a quick stop and had a tasty pastry from the little village shop before heading back down on the road back to Aviemore. I then followed some of the old logging way, which is a mountain bike trail, also very popular with walkers, that takes you in and out of the woodland around there in between lochs and over the mountain, which is exactly what I did. I headed over the mountain and the plan was to camp at Loch Eanaich. Now the weather was absolutely horrendous as I got near the top. It was a beautiful track, but as I reached the summit, it seemed to turn and it was really heavy snow and driving wind. And it was really quite dangerous, to be honest. My bike was blowing around all over the place. So instead of carrying on over the hill and landing down at the loch, I decided, because it's very exposed at the loch, to turn around and go down a little bit into the glen and camp at the woodland, which is what I ended up doing. I just felt I would probably be quite miserable by the time I got to the loch. It was super windy and it was super exposed, so I just had that feeling where I'm not going to have a good night's sleep here, so I'm glad I made that decision in going back to the woodland. The route that I had planned was only 25 to 30 miles each day, and the reason I did that is from experience of doing these winter bikepacking trips, there's always something that goes wrong. Either the weather's terrible or I end up with a mechanical, and because it gets dark quite early, I just thought I'm going to plan a small route, take my time, and hopefully nothing bad will happen. The following morning I followed a different set of tracks down the mountain past Loch and Eanaich, which was a beautiful loch, stunning scenery, where I was going to then stock up in Aviemore and carry on down to Kingussie. Now I had all day to get to Kingussie because my train was something like 9 o'clock at night and I was only doing less than 30 miles, so I was taking my time doing lots of filming, taking it steady. Now I did notice a few miles into the ride after I'd stocked up that my front tyre was getting a little bit soft. With a leaky valve. It's not too bad yet, but it's definitely getting soft. So I realised quite quickly I had a slow puncture. Now that's not necessarily a problem, but I really didn't want to have a full-blown puncture on this bike because it's so difficult to get the tyres off. They're basically tubeless ready wheels and tyres, but the tyres are so tight that it's really a challenge to get them off unless I'm at home. So when you're out with freezing cold hands and wet hands, it can be very stressful just trying to take the tyres off. So what I did instead is I kept topping it up with air from the pump just to keep it going. That kept me going for quite a while until the inevitable happened and my tyre failed. I was about 5 or 6 miles away from Kingussie at the time, so I just thought to myself, rather than fighting with the tyre, I'm just going to walk the rest of the way. It's 5 or 6 miles, I can do it, and I've got like 5 hours to get there, so it's not going to be a problem at all. After I'd been walking for a couple of hours, all of a sudden a car pulls up, and in the car was an older couple who offered me a lift because they'd seen me walking the other direction. They'd put the seats down and then we put the bike in and they offered to take me to Kingussie, which was very generous of them. And I was so thankful for that because I was absolutely freezing. Anyway, we got chatting and it turned out they were called Ron and Carol, and they were really interested in cycle touring, and they'd done it all over the world. They were really interesting and really lovely people. Now, because my train wasn't for a good few hours, they offered to take me and my bike back to their house to help fix the tyre, which they did, and then they offered me in for dinner and a cup of tea, which was amazing. So they'd made fresh soup for me and a hot cup of tea. So we ended up chatting, and I was so thankful. You know, it was really lovely to see such generosity out there. So I'm sure you're watching, so we had a quick chat about the YouTube, Ron and Carol. Thank you very much for your help. It was massively, massively appreciated. As always, I will leave the routes in the description of this video, so if you want to check out the route in more detail, you can do. They're free to download. Next month's bikepacking adventure takes me overseas again to a country and a continent that I've never been to before, so stay tuned. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic one. I will see you in the next video.